Alright, for section 5.6, what we're going to do is we're going to find the rational zeros is what it's called. It's very similar to what we did in section 5. The difference is I'm not going to give you a place to start. It's where you're going to have to figure it out first. So the problem that I have here is very similar to what we did in section 5. The only difference, like I said, is that there isn't a number to start with. So we have to find one. And what we use is we use a thing called the rational zeros theorem. And that says to come up with a list of possible answers, how you calculate them is you take the factors of the constant and divide it by the factors of the lead coefficient. So for the particular problem that I have on there, the first thing that you need to do is come up with what times what gives you 12. Now the one thing that most people forget is that we always should have plus or minus. And the reason for that is because I can take -1 times -12, for instance, and get a positive 12. So you will always have plus or minus for every single one of these. So those are the numbers that multiply together to give you 12, like 3 and 4, 2 and 6, and 1 and 12. And then the lead coefficient for this one is 1. So I have plus or minus 1 on the bottom. Now what I would do is I would take every single one of the ones on top, divided by every single one of the ones in the bottom. When it's a 1 down here, it doesn't really matter. Our list of possibles then just is the top row. If there's 2 numbers or 3 numbers in the bottom or 4 or whatever, then we have a bigger list. But the first couple of questions is only going to ask you to come up with the list of possible solutions that we have for the problem. We're not actually going to find any of the things, we're just going to come up with a list. So I'll give you another one like that, where we're just finding a list. So I have f of x equals 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 11x minus 6. So what times what gives me 6 is 1, 2, 3, and 6. And on the bottom, I'd have plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2, because there's 2 as the lead coefficient. So then I take every single one of these ones. So I have plus or minus 1, plus or minus 1/2, because I'm taking 1 divided by 2. And then I do the next ones. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I already have it listed. I don't need to write it again. Then 3 divided by 1 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. 6 divided by 1 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And I already have that. So there's my list of possible solutions. Okay. Now it's not going to give me all the solutions, but it's going to give me at least a list of possible real solutions for that. Then after we get that list, what you're going to be asked to do is then try to find one that works. So what you do is, when you have your equation, you got x cubed minus 8x squared plus 11x plus 20. First thing you need to do is come up with the list of possible solutions. So what times what gives you 20 is 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. And the lead coefficient is a 1, so I don't need to divide it by anything. So there's my list of possible solutions. Now our job is to try to find 3 answers, and the reason why it's 3 is because the highest exponent right there is a 3. So when you're trying this out, you're basically just going to try one to see if it works. And what we're doing is we're going to use synthetic division, and you're going to try to get 0 as the remainder. If you don't get 0 as the remainder, then it's not a 0. So then you have to try a different one. So if I tried 1 in my backwards L, I'm going to have 1, -8, 11, and 20. Drop the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. -7, -7, 4, 4, 24, not a 0. Okay, so that didn't work. So what I do is I just take my handy-dandy eraser, I erase out all this stuff, and I try again with a different number. So I'm going to try -1 this time. -1 times 1 is -1, which is -9. -1 times -9 is +9, which is 20. -20 and 0. Woohoo! So we got one that works. So once I get to that step, I have one answer that works. So therefore what I do is now if it was x to the third, I drop it down by 1, so therefore now it's x squared. So I have 1x squared minus 9x plus 20. And now that becomes a quadratic, which you can use the quadratic equation or factoring. In this particular case, it does factor, x minus 4, x minus 5. And this is like those ones at the last part of chapter 5 or section 5 where you had to set each group equal to 0 and solve it. So x minus 4 equals 5 and x minus 5 equals 0. So x would equal 4, x would equal 5, and don't forget the negative 1 that we found that worked also. So there's our 3 answers. Some of the problems may require you to, when you get to this step, may require you to use the quadratic formula if it does not factor. Keep this in mind. You're looking for just the real zeros at this point. So if you put it in the quadratic equation and it gives you a negative underneath the square root, you can stop because it does not say find all zeros. It just says find the real ones. So at this point, then it stops. So as far as what's going on with this, this is how to do it. As far as coming up with one right away, there's no real trick to coming up with one to begin with. You just have to kind of roll the dice and see what happens. So hope that helped.